Good day, everybody. Are going to talk this today about introduction to bioethics and two parts, part one and part two. We'll start with part one and we look at the definitions of bioethics and related titles to it. So if you look at the Oxford English Dictionary, you will find that bioethics is defined as set of principles concerning right or wrong and how people should behave. It's a branch of philosophy concerned with moral principles. Principles concerning right or wrong of how we should behave. This is the simple Oxford English Dictionary for the definition. If we look at it from another point to see professional ethics, what does that mean? Medical ethics, ethics in law, ethics engineering, a profession. So it is principles that govern the behavior of a person or a group of business environment. A person or a group in business environment provides rules on how a person should act towards other people and institutions when providing service to the public in such an environment. Simply, we are a profession, medical profession, providing service to the community. So there are certain principles that governs our behavior to make it ethical. The earliest example of such principles is the Hippocratic Oath in the medical profession. Ethics are moral. If we think about them in Arabic, more or less the two words have the same translation, akhlaq. But when we look at it in a technical form, they are quite different. Morals and ethics. So ethics, rules of conduct recognized in respect to a particular class of human actions or a particular group of culture. So conduct of certain behaviors in a certain community of a certain action. So it is social system. It's external, it's not me, it is who, it is they. While morals are principles or habits with respect to right or wrong, a personal compass of right or wrong, what I feel or what I believe, is individual. So it's internal to me. An example, we'll give two examples. One of them is the defense of attorney, a lawyer. He believes that murder is reprehensible and requires punishment. Any murder. That is his morals. But he has to defend his client once he accepts the case to the best of his knowledge, even if he knows that the client is guilty. So this is the ethics of the profession. While in medicine, a doctor may believe that euthanasia. A doctor may personally believe that it is the patient's right to end his life. This is his morals. In most of the world, he is not allowed to euthanize a patient even on request. This is the ethics. So then came bioethics. It is a relatively new field, emerging actually in the late 1960s, though many of the questions it addresses are as old as medicine itself. Of course, here we are talking about medicine. It could be about any other profession. For example, the Code of Hammurabi and the Hippocratic Oath include provisions concerning the importance of ethical considerations to clinical practice. So ever since that time, issues related to our practice has been put either in the Code of Hammurabi or the Hippocratic Oath. So bioethics concerns moral, legal, political, and social issues raised by medicine, biomedical research, and life sciences, biotechnologies. So all issues related to these raised by medicine practice, biomedical research, life sciences technology, we just then look at them from a moral, legal, political, social aspects. Here, this is Hammurabi, and this is the code. Sorry, this is Hippocrates, and this is the code of Hippocrates. He wrote his now famous dictum: "Premium non nocere, first do harm." At that time, he was grappling with one of the core issues still facing human medicine, namely the role and duty of the physicians. Still, till this moment, we are just talking about issues and elaborating on new development issues that relate to our practice in medicine. So, bioethics is the philosophical study of the ethical controversies brought about by advances in biology and medicine. Advances in biology and medicine, as far we as concerned. It is concerned with the ethical questions that arise in the relationship among, you can see the keyword here, relationship among life sciences, biotechnology, medicine, politics, law, philosophy, and theology, and others. So bioethics is concerned with the relationship of all these together in our practice to give services to the environment or to the community. So why bioethics? Why should bioethics, or how was it developed? First, there is rapid development in the natural sciences and technology. Rapid development in the last century, for example. That led to undesirable consequences like nuclear waste, how to dispose of it, how to get rid of it, water and air pollution, clearing of tropical forests for the climate, improving or destroying the climate related to the tropical forests, and large-scale livestock farming. These are just examples that has been the result of the rapid development of science and technology. Other factors are particular innovations such as gene technology and cloning. Now, we'll talk about cloning, talk about gene technology, how to use it in medicine, how to use it in our food industry, and issues like abortion, euthanasia, and gene manipulated food. These are new issues now. They weren't there. Somebody who had brain death, would you switch the machine off and let him or her die? That's euthanasia. Or should you continue indefinitely? A new issue, a new question that needs to be looked into from a bioethical point of view. This caused fears concerning the future of humankind. If we don't deal with them properly in an ethical way, then there is risk to the future of the coming generation. If, for example, you allow nuclear waste everywhere without proper disposing of it, or you clear the forest to help or otherwise in climate. So this represents future mankind risks. So the history, I have said, is a new subject. How it develops, we can address it or address the history of bioethics in three different ways. One, by the origin of the notion of bioethics, the idea itself. How did it come? Then the origin of the subject as an academic discipline and the institutionalization of bioethics. Thirdly, the origin of it as a phenomenon, a notion, an idea, academic discipline, a phenomenon. Each focuses on different aspects concerning the history of bioethics. So let us take the first one, the idea, the notion of bioethics. How historically, how did it develop? We go back to two issues in it, or two historical issues in it. One is two papers published by Potter, and his paper was Bioethics, the Science of Survival in 1970, and another paper published by Callahan, his paper entitled Bioethics as a Discipline in 1973. Both papers argue for the establishment of a new academic discipline. So as recent as 1970 and 1973. Also, the other factor is discussion between two scientists, Shriver and Hellinger, about the need for an institute in which researchers should examine and analyze medical dilemmas by appealing to moral philosophy. A medical dilemma, whether to do X or not, to do such research or not, then they have to be institutes training people on how to answer such questions, and that entails bioethics. Initially, as an academic, that was the notion. As an academic discipline, initially bioethics was seen as more or less identical with medical ethics. That's as far back as 1803, the beginning of the 19th century. Okay, so that's Thomas Percival. At that time, bioethics mainly conducted by philosophers and theologians, religious people, and very few physicians. So medicine at that time was not involved into it except by few people who are doing it, or few physicians. Research experiments on human subjects committed by the Nazi and the Tuskegee syphilis study are recent issues that led to the origin, to the development of bioethics as an academic discipline whereby people should be aware of everything, of every bit about it, even if they are doing research. And these two are just example of research being done in a non-ethical way. However, reaction to these horrible events, here the Nazi experiment and the Tuskegee syphilis study later on, the Nuremberg Code and the Helsinki Declaration, that's in 1947, the Nuremberg Code, Declaration of Helsinki, 1964, were created in response to the Nazi experiments, which we will see in a minute. The idea of individual informed consent emerged. So to give you my consent, I have to have full information and then decide what to do. It was not you as a doctor who will decide for me. You just give me the information, all the information, then I will take your decision or disagree with your decision. Another factor that added to the development of bioethics as an academic discipline, influential books, two of them as an example here. One, Morals and Medicine, published by Fletcher in 1954. The second one is The Patient as Person, Explorations in Medical Ethics by Ramsey in 1970. These two facilitated the creation of the new academic discipline, which is bioethics. So against this background of papers being published, of experiments being done, of books being published, along these or against these backgrounds were created the Institute of Society, Ethics, and the Life Sciences in 1969. This institute, later called the Hastings Center, and also another institute, the Joseph and Rose Kennedy Center for the Study of Human Reproduction and Bioethics in 1971. These institutes are academic institutes to foster the discipline of bioethics, train, teach, research in it, and eventually it become institutionalized. The need for medical ethics experts and commission was fostered by a series of important events in medicine, especially the Harvard definition of brain death. So since the time of Hippocrates or Hammurabi, issues are coming in our practice, in our medical practice. And now and then a new development or a new technology arises. And that needs to be looked into by an institution that will give us the solution. In the case here, it is brain death. How to define or the definition of brain death, when to switch off the machine if the patient is on supportive machine, and that was by the Harvard University in 1968. Also, new technologies in life sciences cause new interventions and possibilities for the survival of the risk. New technologies improved the practice, but still need to be looked into from an ethical or bioethical discipline. These new inventions or technologies like kidney dialysis, it wasn't there before. Intensive care units were not there before. Organ transplantation, renal transplant, liver transplant, heart transplant, etc. And respirators, just to mention a few. These are new technologies which led to the bioethics to be a discipline to be looked into so that it can solve the ethical problems related to what we are practicing. So as a phenomenon, we have done with it as a notion, idea, as an academic institute, and now as a phenomenon. The phenomenon can be traced back to the Hippocratic Oath in antiquity, and that's about 500 BCE, before current era, and possibly beyond that. While the Code of Hammurabi is definitely beyond that, it goes back up to 1750 BCE. And both contain some written provisions related to our medical practice. So as a phenomenon, as old as 4 centuries before, but still an issue dealing with new problems emerging every now and then. And one would expect that within the coming 10 years, a new development in technology will come, and we have to deal with it from an ethical point of view or in bioethics. The second point here is the way people think about animals and their moral status. We are using animals in our research. We are treating animals in the environment. What is the morality about that? Is it moral or not? Shall we protect the animals or not? So it has been mentioned, or it has been argued actually, animals have a moral status and should be protected, is based in modern moral philosophy, most notably utilitarianism on the one hand, and the animal rights movements in the 18th and 19th centuries in Europe and USA. And we will come and see how utilitarian uh, school of philosophy have dealt with animals having moral and have to be looked at in the bioethics study. This is the reference. So, bioethics, the term itself, created by Potter, who is a biochemist, he make a bridge or the gap between facts of life and values. How the facts of life we see them, and what are the values that are emerging now and then. And it came from two Greek words. Bios means life, representing the fact of life and life sciences. Ethos means morals, referring to the values and duties. So the values and fact of life to be bridged or to be merged together to give us the bioethics. So accordingly, the strict definition for bioethics that it is a systematic study of human conduct in the area of life science and healthcare, insofar as this conduct is examined in the light of moral values and principles. So bioethics, looking at what we have mentioned, encompasses medical ethics and extends beyond it. It's not identical to medical ethics, but medical ethics are part of bioethics. So dealing with bioethics, there is another component of it. This definition, you can find it in the Encyclopedia of Bioethics, and that is the reference for that. So accordingly, it became an interdisciplinary approach. To do what? Particular way of ethical reasoning and decision making that integrates empirical data from relevant natural sciences, most notably medicine, in the case of our medical ethics here, integrates it and considers other disciplines of applied ethics. Other disciplines are research ethics, information ethics, social ethics, feminist ethics, religious ethics, political, and ethics of law in order to solve the case in question. So integrates, consider these topics or these sciences or disciplines to solve the problem in question in our medical practice. So we talk here about ethics general. The four pillars of principle of ethics are autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. Take them one by one. Autonomy. Autonomy defined as the self-rule that is free from both controlling interference by others and from certain limitations, such as inadequate understanding that prevents meaningful choice. So it entails that the individual has the right to make his decision or her decision, provided that he has been given full, adequate information about a problem, whether that's medical or otherwise, and he has to make his own informed consent for the procedure to be done or not to be done. Then we go to beneficence. It means providing a benefit to another. In our case, don't do harm to anybody. It's just, provide benefit to him. Don't do harm in the non-maleficence. So, providing a benefit to somebody, it is a moral obligation to act for the benefit of others. Principle of this moral obligation is protect and defend the rights of others, irrespective of that right is medical or otherwise. Help person with disabilities, so you are giving them benefit or providing them benefit. Rescue persons in danger, that is beneficence. Non-maleficence, an obligation to not inflict harm on others. Beneficence, give them advantage or give them benefit. Here, don't inflict harm on them. That's the first, do no harm for what any decision you are going to make. It shouldn't be initially harmless. It should be harmful. It should be harmless. Distinct from beneficence. Obligations not to harm, rob or kill. Obligation to help others, rescue a drowning child, withholding and withdrawing life-sustaining treatment. All these not to be done, not to inflict harm on others. Then justice. Fair and just distribution of social burdens, benefits, opportunities, and allocation of positions. And then we will see if you are doing a research on a certain topic or a certain problem, you must distribute the burden of the research between the participants and the benefit of that. Risk benefit has to be weighed and has to be distributed in a just way. And that's, we call justice and distributive justice. Fair, equitable, and appropriate distribution determined by social norms. Access to health care, selection of research subjects, population are just two examples. Just to elaborate on this more, health care, should it be available for everyone or should it be available for those who can afford it? The quality of health care, should it be equal or should it be discriminatory? Those who can afford will have a better health care. As a government or as the body who is going to provide this service. So you have to have justice and distributive justice in doing that. When selecting research participants, there are certain research which were done in low-income countries, and the one that provide the money for that is a high-income country. The outcome or the result of the research is beneficial to human community at large or humankind at large. But unfortunately, those on whom the researcher has done the research, low-income countries cannot afford to get it. So what is the responsibility of high-income countries for that? It has to be distributive in a just way so that they can have it. It's just an example. And that's what happened initially when the research on HIV/AIDS drugs have started. Selection of the research population also. So, bioethics as a subject practiced today can be traced back to three different but interrelated events. Three different events. One of them is the abuses of human beings in the course of medical research, especially during the World War II, Second World War. And this is an example of this. This is the famous picture. You can see it everywhere. This is the Nuremberg trial, where doctors who were doing research on human subjects who are prisoners of war. They abused them, and eventually it was a research project. It turned out to be a crime against humanity, and they were put on trial for murder of their subjects. And as we will see, some of them actually were executed, some of the doctors. So it's an issue that really led to bioethics. It's actually a great step in the milestones of the development of bioethics. The second is the emergence of medical technology. I just giving you here one of the examples. Here, this is in vitro fertilization or the test tube baby, where you get the ovum from the lady, fertilized by the sperm in the laboratory, and put it back. This is not the natural way of having babies, but this is a new development, and now almost millions of children are born with this sort of technology. And this is just an example. Others could be renal transplant, heart transplant, liver transplant, etc., stem cell, etc. So this is the second. The third is the civil rights movement, which wasn't there at that time. There were distinct classes in the humankind, those who are at the top, affluent, rich, governing, those who are in the middle doing the service for them, and those who are slaves, who are just doing what is asked from them. So that led to the change of the civil rights of everybody in the human mankind. So that development led to bioethics, and it comes when you are applying it for medical care or for research in our discipline. So accordingly, bioethics have 4 pillars, which are research ethics, doing research, medical ethics, I put it here, medical ethics, though the correct is the professional ethics for every profession. But in our case, specifically, it's medical ethics, but it could be a law, engineering, science, economy, whatever. There are also laws in it and ethics into it. The third is environmental ethics, the environment. And the fourth is animal ethics. Do they have any ethics or not? We will look into that and see. So let us discuss them one by one and see. Medical ethics focuses on issues in health care. You are providing health care to the community. What are the ethics to be done there? Research ethics focuses on issues in the conduct of research on human subjects or on animal subjects. And we'll see what we mean by research. Environmental ethics, the environment, focuses on issues pertaining to the relationship between human activities and the environment. Human activities, whatever you do, you want to clear a forest, you want to kill a lot of animals, you want to do nuclear research. This is activity you are doing. So how to relate that to the environment to be an ethical way? And the fourth is animal ethics, addresses the ethical issues related to animals, whether you use them as research subjects or research animals, or whether you deal with them in their environment, to kill them or not. So this is bioethics. We'll try and just elaborate on some of them or all of them. Medical ethics. I'm sure you will have so many lectures on medical ethics during your course. Is a system of moral principles that apply values and judgment to the practice of medicine. I'm practicing medicine. There are certain values and judgment which I have to be very much rigid to them and do them the right way. I have to abide by them. Medical ethics encompasses its practical application in clinical settings, seeing a patient, as well as work on It is history, philosophy, theology, and sociology. So on any one of these, that is medical ethics. There are a number of important traditional issues in medical ethics that still need to be solved. Just remember the fact that certain issues were addressed by Hippocrates, by Hammurabi, related to medical practice. These issues are still there, but some new issues has developed for us, and we have to deal with them in our medical profession. These include beginning and end of life. When life starts, after just fertilization or after implantation of the fertilized ovum in the uterus, or after a certain period of time. And accordingly, abortion. Would you do abortion or not? Depending on your morals. If you are going to do it, at what age can you do it? The soul, الروح, when does it come into the body? Has it got relation at all to our practice? These are issues to be dealt. وقل الروح من أمر ربي. Then euthanasia, الموت الرحيم, limiting therapeutic treatment. So these are the beginning and end of lives, still issues to be dealt with in our medical ethics. The patient-physician relationship. In the past, the patient always think that the physician or the doctor, he or she knows everything and he does what he wants with you, as if he is the custodian of the patient. But in our practice now, issues now, that is not the case. The patient, he or she, should be given the full information about his case, about his problem, the possible procedures for treatment, and how to treat them, and he or she to make the decision whether to accept your advice or not. And that's not an insult to the doctor if he said, no, I'm not going to accept this. So physician-patient relationship. Third, research on human beings, and we'll see that in more details. More recent medical issues have come into our medical practice that needs to be looked into from a medical ethic point of view. These are reproductive decision making, as example, when to have a child, when not to have a child. If you have a child which you don't want, should you or should she abort it or not? Is that acceptable or not? Depending from country to country, religion to religion, and the social life itself. Other issues are organ transplantation, just distribution of healthcare resources, access to healthcare, as I have mentioned earlier on. Is it for the affluent, rich people, or is it for everybody? And the standard of you are giving it. Most recently, vital issues concerning healthcare systems and global public health. An example, COVID-19. It's a global issue. How people should deal with it worldwide. It wouldn't be just to the community or to the particular doctor who is doing it. HIV/AIDS is becoming an issue. So that becomes a global public health. When you are doing research ethics, we have dealt with medical ethics in brief. When doing research ethics, I put a theory that such a research will end up with such a finding. And I would like to prove or disprove this theory I have put. I would like to see whether this drug is beneficial and is it better than the placebo or not. So when doing so, I have to have a balance between two goals. The first and important one is the protection of the research subject welfare and rights. Protect them from abuses in the course of research. That's what has happened in the Second World War. Protect it against advance or balance it against advancement of science, with the emergence of technologies which have challenged various widely held public values. A simple technology I can give you is the in vitro fertilization. The natural way of getting a baby is known to everybody. Nowadays, you can get a baby in a different way, different technology. Not only that, now people are working on stem cell to create babies from stem cells. So these are issues challenging what we used to believe, and they worked. So we have to balance them against the protection of the subject we use. So this is the end of our first talk. We stop here and we'll start on the second part of our talk.